We just left Hammerfest. We stayed here for a good day, actually 2 nights, and the day yesterday, and now it's just after 12 o'clock, 1:45. We're leaving. Today's destination is Hasvik, about 35 nautical miles east from here. That's 6.5 hours ride, so we should be there by the evening, and we'll spend the night there, and then tomorrow very early it's a start, probably 5-6 o'clock. We have a long leg back to Tromsø. I spoke to a fisherman just moored on the same pontoon as us early this morning, and he said he has to wait for his crew arriving tonight with the 9 o'clock flight to Hammerfest, and then he will do the same as us, except he will not stop over in Hasvik. He's got to be slightly later, so he'll make a full night through, and the next day into Tromsø. He's probably seen the same weather system coming and wants to make that big hop. The first part of the weather forecast has proven right. So this morning it was raining when we got up, and then it was cloudy. Now the clouds slowly disappear and the sun came out. That's exactly what was forecast. So the forecast is also that the wind, the weak wind that we have, will start turning from west over north to east. So we'll see whether that's going to be true as well. Behind us is the Hurtigruten boat. We're being overtaken. They are heading direction south. Their next stop is probably Skjervøy, and they are just sneaking behind us. This morning I was in the local museum called the Museum of Reconstruction, and the museum is very interesting. It's 2 parts. One part is the old history of how the Finnmark has been settled before Christ, from the Stone Age, and what these people then had done. And the second part is the very sad shorter term history of World War II. In World War II, the north of Norway was occupied by the Germans, and for 5 years or so the Germans lived here side by side with the Norwegians. The Norwegians were forced to cohabitate with their invaders. When the Germans tried to attack the Soviet Union via Murmansk, and this attack failed, and the Russians actually struck back, Hitler ordered the retreat, and he didn't only order a retreat, but he also ordered the complete burned soil strategy up here, which means that everything would be destroyed. During this last phase of the war, about 50,000, some even speak of 75,000 inhabitants of the Finnmark, from between Hammerfest to Kirkenes near the Russian border, were forced to evacuate further south. Those who were, I think, lucky, they only had to go as far as Tromsø. The ones less lucky were displaced all over Norway, to the south and everywhere. They lost everything. They could just take some of their belongings with them, and after this evacuation had happened, the Germans just burned down everything. 10,000 of homes, hundreds of workshops, farms, fishing boats, just everything. After the war, when people returned into Finnmark, they had to rebuild their houses, their towns, their villages, and as it started, they had to be quick. They just built up some barracks. Time after time, these barracks were then converted into more modern houses, but the last of the barracks, they were still inhabited in the 1970s. This hasty reconstruction of the Finnmark led to the sometimes a bit peculiar architecture and planning of the places up here. It has been done in a very systematic way, in a quick way. Standard building plans were developed. The space, the available space, was cut in geometric lines, and this sometimes gives the places up here a kind of a peculiar look. Not what you would expect, a place with centuries of history and also architectural history, but because most of the houses have been built right after the war, in the 10 years or 15 years after the war, it has left a very specific stamp on the look. So, how was your day today, Catherine?
Today it was some editing, but yesterday I went for a hike, but unfortunately some of the hiking paths, they were quite huge and wide with gravel on it, so I went cross country, found some peak and some really like lakes, small lakes, and I enjoyed myself. But there is a lot of water coming down from the snow, and they took the bridges away, so sometimes it was quite difficult or adventurous to cross the little stream or even the huge stream coming down the mountains. But I had fun, and I really liked to hike by myself, so I had a nice day.
We don't do.
Normally I want to know how it looks when we arrive.
Yes, normally you want to do that. I don't know. Now we don't seem to have internet. Okay, so let's go on the chart here. So here, let me zoom in. It's over here. I think this one is the guest pontoon.
So if the gas pontoon is empty, how would you prefer? What would be
if we can choose? I would want to go probably not on the inside here, but on the outside. So I would go backwards to port. Yes. So this is the bow going like this. Okay. If we can choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the plan. After another beautiful day and 35 nautical miles of motoring, we arrive in Hasvik. a small fishing harbour with a pontoon that belongs to the local fish processing factory. As we are well outside of the fishing season now, we find plenty of space to moor Polaris. Hasvik is the main settlement on the island of Sørøya. It has a ferry connection to Øksfjord, as well as a small airport, and its safe mole harbour is accessible in all weather. We just left Hasvik this morning at 5:45. We're just outside the harbour, have put away the fenders and the lines, and we're ready to go on our probably longest voyage by engine so far. It's 85 nautical miles, 86 nautical miles. Takes us about 12 to 13 hours, and I hope the engine will hold through. I checked the oil, I topped up the engine oil a bit, checked the gearbox oil, which seems to be okay, and now we're on the way. So the weather is overcast. Actually, according to the forecast, it should be bright and sunny, but at least there is no rain, so that's fine. The wind is weak. We have about 7 knots from the side at the moment, but the wind is playing funny games around these headlands where we have, so I don't expect a lot of sailing today. There's a little haze across over the water. We'll see how that will develop, but otherwise everything looks fine. Welcome to Lopphavet. This is a notorious place we're crossing here. In the pilot books and charts it says it's dangerous waves in certain conditions, and if we look, we have at the moment about 10 knots of wind on the nose, and quite a high old swell standing in out from the ocean. So behind me in my back, the next stop is about Greenland, so we have the full force of the North Atlantic coming in here, and that's why it is so dangerous here. There's shallows and channels, and when the wind builds up a good wave, then you have very dangerous seas here. So it's very well known by the locals, and there's warning. So today, even in very calm conditions, we have quite a roller coaster through here. It's now 7:10. We're into 1.5 hours, and we've done about 8 nautical miles. We are coming to the other side of Sundet, I think it's called, and that's just the outer part of Lopphavet, which is this dangerous part. And it says that the danger is where the sea floor goes up steep. So we are now here at the depth of about 400 meters, and within the next nautical mile or so it will go up to about 50-60 meters, and here again we should expect or could expect higher waves and bad waves, breaking waves even in bad weather. Not today, but it might be that we're getting a little bit more rocky again. It was quite calm out there where the water was deep, but now approaching this headland and shallower water, we might see some more agitation. We are now in about 50 meters of water, 45, so we made it from 400 to 50, and the sea is actually quite flat calm, so there's not a lot going on here. That's how unpredictable it is. So maybe with more local knowledge one would know, but here we're always in for a surprise. So it's actually quite flat, and I don't expect more waves than this. The wind around this headland here, the top of the island, is right on our nose with about 10 knots of true. So nothing to sail into, particularly not if we still have like 75 nautical miles to go. Well, it's time for a quick update. It's 10 o'clock almost in the morning, and we have made about 30 nautical miles of the 85 we have to do, so still a bit to do. About a third is done. We're now in an area, in a sea area called Kvænangen, and this is where in the winter now all the whale watching goes on. That's here where the herring is coming in and the whales are following. So just off Skjervøy, the place of Skjervøy, the island where we have been before. The sun is out, there's no wind, a little bit of swell coming in, but actually quite lovely. And so far the weather forecast is true, the sun has come out, and it's quite a nice day. Catherine was watching, and we've done nicely. So it's 28 nautical miles to Tromsø, so the biggest thing is done. Behind me here are the Lyngen Alps. This is the Lyngen Peninsula, and we have some wind here now from the northeast, and I think in theory we could sail, but I fear it's just a local phenomenon, and that in half an hour we can stop the whole thing again. So being too lazy, we're not raising the sails. We are now 10 nautical miles out of Tromsø. It's almost done, and it's stunning how green the scenery has become. We have gone a little bit to the south, out of Finnmark into Troms, and here the shores are green. All the leaves are out, the grass is green, it's beautiful. So here really spring, or probably almost summer, has arrived, whereas up at Nordkapp it's still barely spring. Around the next bend down here we will be able to spot the bridge that goes across the Sund to Tromsø. It's probably another 1.5 hours and we're in, and we hope we will find a spot. It's Pentecost weekend, and there might be some traffic in the harbour. We've seen quite a few boats actually on AAS, so but so far we were always able to find a spot to park ourselves, and I think we will be lucky as well. The wind has completely died again on us. We never pulled the sails up because we never had a good wind for sailing for, I would say, more than half an hour, and it's quite some work here in Polaris to set the mainsail, so it takes a bit of time, and it's quite a tiring work, or a hard work. So we're not just lifting the sail and dropping it and raising it again for fun. We do it when it's worthwhile, and today it wasn't, as quite often up here. So no wind now. We had some spots where we had 15, 16 knots even, good sailing wind, but that only lasted very locally for a couple of minutes. And this concludes the long way back before our real summer adventure starts. Stay tuned. In the next episode, after a lot of preparations, we finally start our trip further north to the remote and icy Svalbard.